Welcome to the Challenging the Way We Age podcast, hosted by the Mavericks of Senior Living, Francis and Catherine, focusing on creativity, ingenuity, and inspiration to educate and inspire changes in the senior experience, breaking the status quo. We want to thank our supporters, Assured Assisted Living, Serenity App, Sevens Home Care, and Sevens Residential Memory Care. Now get ready for the next episode.
Hi, you Mavericks. Welcome back. This is Catherine, your Chief Inspiration Maverick, and Francis and I are talking with Simon Parker, the host of the Care Home Show in the UK, a great podcast. I invite you to check it out. And this is part 2 of our podcast with Simon. So let's dive in. We really got into some of the deeper challenges that they are experiencing in the UK. Enjoy the show.
So what's the biggest challenges you're facing right now? We have staffing issues in the States as one of our big issues. Yeah. I'm assuming you have the same workforce crisis as well, but what else is out there that's a challenge for you? Or in the UK, I should say.
Okay, so I'll touch upon the recruitment and retention side of things because I think that's really, really important. So largely as a sector, if you ask the kind of the community, if you like, they'd say that one of their biggest challenges is recruitment and retention. And it's very widely documented in the kind of the mainstream media and then also in the sector media as well. Now, I agree very much that this is the problem, but this isn't the cause of the problem. I'm very much of the opinion that if you're going to try and fix a problem, you need to fix the cause of the problem, because if you don't, then the problem's just not going to go away. It's going to keep on rearing its ugly head as such. So it's my opinion personally that nationally we have a cultural issue, and that's around how we perceive the care sector. This is often compounded by the mainstream media creating sensationalized headlines around what goes on in care homes. That's not to understate the fact that some terrible things do happen in care homes, but it's absolutely in the minority. And you can't understate the fact that we can't let those types of things happen, and that we must learn from those experiences and strive to make sure that they're completely eradicated to the best extent that we can do. But largely the sector it's a great sector and people do genuinely care. So having the mainstream media lambast, kind of tar everyone with the same brush and kind of alter the public perception, I think is really, really negative. And I think that makes people more conscious about entering in, because they think it's just going to be bandit country, quite frankly. So that's bad. And then I think culturally we have a challenge around the actual care homes themselves. So care homes need to have a culture where they're empowering their team and providing their team with purpose, so they know the direction of travel that the organization's going in, and that they've got an operating system for their people, so they know how to show up on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's in my humble opinion, I think that building a high performance culture is the most undervalued opportunity for businesses as a whole, everywhere, literally, and most for, if not most, for the care sector. Now, in the UK and in England rather, part of that well-led part of the CQC's inspection focuses on culture. It talks about the vision of the organization. It talks about the values. It talks about the behaviors of the team. So not least because it's a massive business opportunity, because it will enable enable great things to happen within your organization. Actually, you know what, the regulator focuses on that really, really heavily as well. And you're never going to get a great CQC inspection, whether that be good or outstanding, if you're not focusing on building a high performance culture within your organization. So that's it's one of my soapbox subjects. I could probably sit and talk about this all day. I quite frequently do. But that's so the recruitment and retention issue is that's the problem that people talk about. I think the conversation that we need to be having is, okay, culturally, again, that's as a nation, and then culturally within these organizations, what can we do to shift that perception so that we have a more positive outlook on supporting older people and people living with dementia? And that comes back to the kind of title of your podcast quite nicely, challenging the way that we age.
Very much so. And we're actually interviewing in a couple weeks here some folks who have started a movement called Changing the Narrative. And it started here in Colorado, and it's all about changing the way we talk about older people. So really not using the word senior, elder, things like that. But really, they've already had international exposure with it, and it was a small group that started here in Colorado. So.
And then we're also going to be diving into the Eden alternative as well, too. Have you heard of that at all? Because it's a pretty big movement that's been going on for a while, started by Dr. Thomas, correct? Dr. Bill Thomas.
Yep.
And something along that same idea of culture disruption of the status quo.
Okay. No, that's really
you have to check more into. You have to check more into that.
Definitely. It kind of rings a bell. It may be that there's another organisation in the UK that's called Eden, or maybe it's the same one. But
it should be the same.
It's probably the same if it's the Eden Alternative. And there's a book that we'll also put in the show notes that was written by the CEO of the Eden Alternative, the current CEO. Her name is Jill Vitale Awesome.
Okay.
And what an amazing name, right?
It's a cool book.
And it's about breaking the status quo. And really, I encourage all of our listeners to read it because I think it's really, really valuable.
And we'll also put that link in our show notes to Amazon so you can link on that to purchase the book as well, too. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of that. So one of our, this is probably one of the points that me and Francis connected on when we originally spoke. What would that have been? Maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month ago now. And one of our values as an organization is to be disruptive. And that's not being disruptive for disruptive sake. Disruptive sake, that's challenging the status quo, that's asking the big questions, that's looking for opportunities to be able to go and improve. So that sounds like my kind of book.
Yes.
So what do you want to challenge for the elders? What's the
that's I think that's really, really important question for all of us to ask, and thank you for asking me it. I think the biggest thing really is choice. I want older people and people living with dementia to be able to live their lives in the most fulfilling way that it's possible wherever they are in their life's journey. Because I mentioned this earlier, but people spend their entire life going around kind of making choices around what they want to do, how they want to spend their time. Why should that not be the case just because they're later on in their life? So if there's one single thing that I could I could change, it would to be trying to create a world where older people and people living with dementia are in a world of choice and fulfillment and purpose.
I love that. That's the world that you see that you're working to create right now. I absolutely love that. So what do you think the Americans and the British can learn from each other here?
Loads.
I know it's a whole big topic and we'll have many more podcasts on it, I'm sure. But what's your initial thought?
Okay, so firstly, there's a part of me that kind of almost doesn't know where to start with this because it's a big and expansive question. I think just before I go into that, I think one of the things that I'm really happy about is the fact that we plan to do a series together. The fact that we can put our heads together in kind of hopefully a relatively frequent basis, just to continue this conversation, so that we can start really understanding each other's respective markets, so that we can find out what those big opportunities to learn are going to be. I think really, for me, it's around best practice, because there's going to be incredible things that you guys are going to be doing that we wouldn't have even thought of, or maybe that we're trying and that we're kind of less developed in our learnings and things, and then simply also as well vice versa. So I think this is a conversation that we need to continue having. I think we need to be able to make sure that we create an environment for effective discourse between us, so that we can look at the opportunities, because that's what we're looking at here, isn't it? It's opportunities to learn from. One of the big things that I talk about an awful lot is creating an ongoing cycle of improvement. So it doesn't matter where you are in your journey, you just need to be keep continuing to push for improvements, like in a virtuous cycle. We get people who I had I have had a number of people kind of say to me, well, Simon, why would I want to aim for an outstanding CQC inspection when there's only one way and it's down? Maybe it's a bit of a poison chalice. And I kind of, the only way that I can respond to that is to kind of say, look, yeah, okay, so it's going to be hard to be able to maintain that, but running a care home business, that's not easy anyway. What you need to be looking for is those constant opportunities to be able to achieve, because it's not, okay, so yes, if you achieve outstanding, that has a certain amount of definition in that it's finite to where you can achieve that. That doesn't mean that the quality of your service has to stagnate and to flatten off. That just means that you've achieved what the regulator expects. Let's go 5, 10, 20% over and above what the regulator expects. Then that way you're always going to get an outstanding CQC inspection, and you're going to continue improving the lives of the people that you're working with, not just the residents of the home, but then also the team that you're working with as well. Because it's so much more exciting working for an outstanding organization that it is that's one that's just good. I don't want to underplay good, but there's a big difference between good and outstanding, and that feels a certain way.
That's great.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think too, is it's almost striving. I mean, yes, it's hard to keep the outstanding rating, but why strive for that middle of the road when our seniors deserve more? Our seniors deserve us pushing ourselves, challenging ourselves to just do things better or improve constantly. Every day we need to be figuring out what can I challenge as a person to make myself better, and then also my organization better. That's what we have to begin, not in the States, I think we're too complacent. In the States, I feel like we are too complacent with our care model.
I think we're a little afraid of pushing the envelope too much, and I'm not sure why.
If cumulatively as a collective, if we can help raise the dial just a little bit, then that's a job well done. Obviously, we want to raise the bar a lot, but any improvement's going to be good improvement, isn't it? And if we can do that, again, on a global basis, which is crazy exciting, just the fact that we're having a pan-Atlantic podcast. Hopefully this is going to be the first of many.
So if you were to give one piece of advice to someone looking to make a positive impact on older people, what would that be?
This is a great question. And this is something that I actually think about quite a lot. I think the biggest superpower that any human can have is getting to know themselves. Because I believe that once you understand yourself and it enables you to be more capable of understanding the world around you. I think once you understand the world around you better, you can look for other people who have a similar world view to you. And I think once you're able to surround yourself with other people who have a similar view to you, then you can start to move mountains. So being able to work with other like-minded people where you've got a shared cause, a clear intent, a clear vision, and people who have similar values to you, that's what's going to make a difference in the world, whether that be care, whether that be anything else that you're interested in.
Looking at it in that perspective is fantastic, because you're building the team around you essentially that's going to help you tackle that challenge and tackle that and move that mountain. And I think, especially in America, we try to do some things too often by ourselves, maybe a little too much. And then we bring that team in after we're either burned out or after we're tired or after we're almost at our breaking point. And then at that point, you realize when you surround yourself by the right people, things can happen and happen quickly. And I'll use Kathy and I's example when we came up with this, brainstorm back in July, and now we're in October, and we've already done, I think, 12 episodes and Facebook Lives and things like that. So you find that right connection that you really gel with and mesh with, you can move huge positive impact. Yeah. Huge. Yeah. I love that. That's going to stick with me. I'm going to make that your quote. So I'm putting that on my Facebook page.
Cut that one out as a snippet. I think that's an important one.
I'm really glad that you enjoy it. Again, I think that's super important. It's something that I think people, the more people that are cognizant of that, and that's a journey, right? It's not like that's not a finite thing. Like, we evolve as human beings. That should be a kind of a constant journey of exploration for us all, so that we can keep pushing to improve whatever our kind of purpose or mission is going to be for ourselves and for the people that we choose to be with.
And one of the things I appreciate about that is you started with, you need to know yourself and understand who you are and what your skills are, where you shine, and not try to be all things, but to really understand your motives, because that's where you can make the biggest difference. So what's the best piece of advice you have been given personally?
Okay, so I'm genuinely blessed in the fact that I've had an opportunity to spend some time with some very inspirational people, some great mentors, and people who have had a really positive influence on me. Because of that, I can't actually answer that with one single question. Or one single piece of advice. So I'll give you my top three, and there's probably a load of other ones that we could talk about. But my top three. So my dad taught me that if you don't ask, you don't get. Anyone that knows me that will know that I'm the most probably tenacious and pedantic person when it comes to getting things done and making things happen. Probably annoyingly so for some people, but that's pretty well deep rooted into me. My mum taught me how to be stoic and how to deal with difficult situations, so just keeping a level head when things are tough. Life's hard. Like the people that get ahead in life are the people that take ownership for what's for themselves and what's going on around them, and I think that requires a certain level of stoicism. And then my primary school teacher, Mrs. Howe, bless her, told me that there was no such word as can't, and that's something that stuck with me forever. So you probably can't see from here, but I get goosebumps when I think about those things. It's something that's built at the fabric of who I am as a person. So yeah, no, those are three things that if I could try and instill three messages into people rather than just one, I'd say that those will be pretty valuable.
Those are fantastic. And your mom and your dad instilled some really great values in you. And so did Mrs. Howe.
Legend, Mrs. Howe. Yeah, she's a fantastic human being.
That's awesome.
Wonderful.
That's so cool.
And boy, you don't ask, you don't get is really important. And I think that's a quality that you need to have if you're really out to change the world. And that's what the three of us and many more are out to do.
And I think, too, it's a great statement for our seniors, is letting them challenge what they currently are. They don't have to accept the status quo. We need more input from them challenging us as operators, owners, providers, whatever facet we are in aging services. We need them to ask us so that they get what they want.
And what they need. Yeah.
Comes back to that choice thing, doesn't it?
Totally comes back to choice. Totally.
Exactly. One of my episodes that I did recently was with a lady called Caroline Baker, who's a leading authority in dementia care in the UK. She works for one of the best bigger providers in the UK called Barchester Healthcare, and because of her area of expertise, we did an episode largely on dementia care with my colleague, a lady called Sue Goldsmith, who's our in-house dementia care expert. So those guys used to work together in a previous life. And one of the things that Caroline said to me is, what we need to do is we need to spend more time listening to the dementia care experts. And that's not the people that have got a PhD. That's not the people that have spent loads of time in the care homes. It's people living with dementia themselves. And I think that was quite a profound thing for somebody to say on the podcast. I'd heard Caroline say it before, but I think I had people messaging me afterwards kind of say that really impacted my thinking with a lot of that. So yeah, that's a real good example of trying to create an environment, I guess, of where it's okay for you to ask and for you to get, because we need to understand the needs, wants, desires of the people that we're looking after to make sure that they enjoy the best possible life experience. And that's part of the purpose of why we get up in the morning, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And that really it flips thinking on its head, which is what we're all about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We obviously could keep talking for probably hours, if not days. But obviously we have to continue this conversation, both, really figure out what this challenge and movement and vision could be for us globally to have these conversations. And so how can people get connected with you, Simon?
So LinkedIn, I'm pretty big on LinkedIn. So if you search Simon Parker, that's where I share most of my content. I'm quite active on there. I'm not particularly big on the other social channels, just because I tend to go all in on things. But we're hoping to get like a social media manager to help us go and transcend all of the different social media platforms. But no, if you'd like to be able to connect, then Simon Parker on LinkedIn. You'll see founding partner of SP&P and host of the Care Home Show on there, because I think there's about 34 different Simon Parkers in the UK, or at least that's what LinkedIn told me recently. And then www.spandp.co.uk. That's our company website if you're interested to find out kind of more about what we do as an organization.
Great. And we'll post that in the show notes as well, so people have a link directly to you.
Yes.
Simon, such a pleasure to meet you. So excited for where we go from here together.
Yeah,
this was, as always, a fantastic experience.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Well, pleasure's all mine, guys. Honestly, this is a conversation that we're at the tip of the iceberg. Ultimately, what we've found here is we found an opportunity for us to work together in collaboration to achieve our kind of cumulative shared intent and vision. And I think that's really, really powerful. So I'm super excited for this to be the beginning of the journey.
Yes, so are we. Thank you, Simon. Have a great evening and safe travels.
Thank you, Simon.
You're absolutely very welcome. Thanks so much, guys. Cheers for your time.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. The Mavericks want to hear from you. Visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Mavericks of Senior Living or mavericksofseniorliving.com and leave us your comments, questions, and ideas for future podcasts.